Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter what time of day that you join us today. We really appreciate you being here. And the first thing I want to do is put a big shout out to my buddy, Jonathan Sanders, who does our video work for that great new intro countdown timer that we've got, and also for our intro music. Jonathan does a really good job and works with us as a virtual person, working with our video presentations and also on hanging our podcasts and other things. So, John, if you listen today, appreciate your work and what you do to help us succeed. So, today, just like usual, we got a really big topic for you. And I think it's one that can benefit you greatly. So, Sheryl, why don't you start out and tell everybody a little bit about what we're going to talk about today?
Well, what we want to talk about is having everyone on the same page. We all tend to have our own agendas, and everybody has their own. But without being on the same page, we want to help you see how that's important and how you need to share and make it come together to have a unique office, or actually a unique human relationship.
Gotcha. So, Brandi, what's your thought processes on what our subject matter is today?
I just think it's really important. I mean, think about like if you have, let's say, five people pushing a car, and some are trying to push it down the hill and some are trying to push it up the hill. You're not going to go anywhere. The only way that you can go to greater heights is if everybody in the organization is on the same page.
That's it. So today's subject matter is the same page. Is everyone in your company on the same page? And this especially holds true of your leadership and management team. So stick around with us. We'll be right back because we're going to play this intro music by my buddy, Jonathan Sanders. We'll be right back with you. You know, as we go through that intro music, if you look, you can see people laughing. Brandi, have you ever noticed how you're picturing there? You're just laughing like crazy in the video clip he picked out of you, and you can see Scott McCain and a lot of our guests that are in that video clip. So again, today our subject matter is everyone on the same page? And you know, this is one of the really big problems I feel, not just in business, but in the world today and in many people's personal lives, and actually is the cause for many marital breakups and separations and even divorce, because the partners are not on the same page. And possibly myself and Sheryl can even speak to that, since we're not this is not our first marriage to each other. Brandi, she is still with the true love of her life that she started out with many years ago. And that's pretty bad, Brandi. You heard me say many years ago. See, you're getting on up there with us.
I know. I can't believe.
Right. So, Sheryl, from the aspect of you view this, tell me about your thoughts on same page, because this is one of the things that I recommend to every client, that their leadership team have regular meetings to ensure they're all on the same page. So from your aspect of looking at this and your life experiences, how important is being on the same page for success, both in business and in a personal life?
Well, it's extremely important, because if you're not, you're fighting each other. You don't have the same understandings. A lot of times we don't share our thoughts with our spouse or with our employees or anything else. And without sharing those, then how do they know where we're at? How do they know what page they should even be on? And a lot of times if we do that, they will rebut and come back with us, and we can see their strengths. And then we can move on to be on the same page with, again, our spouse, our employee, or even just our friends. A lot of times friends get upset because they're not on the same page.
Jerry, I think we lost your sound.
Okay, sorry about that. So, Brandi, from your perspective, because you're in a business setting with your husband, who's also your life partner. So, in this, you guys have been together for quite a few years. You came to work in the business long after you actually got together as life partners and had kids and all that. But how important is it that you do be on that same page and the challenges that often arise when you work with your spouse like you do?
Well, going back to that car analogy and those 5 people, if all 5 people are behind it, pushing it up, then you're going to reach the summit very quickly and reach your goals. And it can be very difficult to work with your spouse. And even in like with some of our clients that we see, Jerry, they may have like a management team that has been with them for a long time. And we'll even see them fight like husband and wife or husband and husband, whatever the case may be. So you really have to have regular meetings and make sure that you're sharing the vision and make sure that everybody has input in that vision and then come to some sort of a common ground.
Right. And Sheryl, you and I, we are a little bit different in that we are married, we are life partners, but we each own individual businesses. And you own a manufacturing entity that you make the decisions in that business. I own a coaching company that you actually work in. But again, this is my company, not Cheryl's. But again, we try to be open with the communication between ourselves of where we're going and what we're accomplishing. So, and being on the same page, one of the things is communication. And that's something that you are very skilled in and being able to communicate with others. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing is, another thing that makes ours go well, we work on separate floors. So that makes a whole lot of difference. But we still need to be on the same page. Like you say, we have separate businesses and separate, totally separate. But we still have to be on that page. We try to keep each other abreast, probably you more than me because I'm literally working within your business. But if you can't assume that your spouse or a friend, again, are in line with you. And a lot of times you're looking at 3 people here that disagree quite a bit. And it's not because we dislike each other, it's because of our opinions. And if we can talk it out, we come to a resolution. We may not be what you would say on the same page, but we're under the same umbrella and we can make it work for people.
Correct. It's just like, so Brandi, I think one of the things, and I'm going to point at you and Jeremy again, because this is one of the things that I feel is one of the secrets of success is Blues Brothers. And that is where each of you recognizes the strengths and what each other is good at and will stand back out of the way and let the other one go. I mean, let's face it, some years ago, and I think it's one of the secrets of your retaining employees and hiring employees is you took over the hiring, you take over the human resources, you have the communication with the employees. In fact, you'll have the disciplinarian talks when it needs to be done. Maybe you bring Jeremy in, maybe you don't. But I think if we looked at Blues Brothers, you would be the disciplinarian for the company. Would I be correct?
Yeah, I prefer to look at it as the proactive coach, but we can call it disciplinarian.
Okay. So, but again, when it comes to financial matters of investments, those kind of things, is that where Jeremy kind of takes the lead?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely handles the financial side of it. It's something that stresses me out if I have to look at the P&L, even though it's usually good. It just I will perseverate on it. Whereas Jeremy is very meticulous about it. He just is really great with it. If I had to do the ordering of the liners and the caps, we'd all be in trouble. None of the customers would have the right stuff. Same way, yes, if he had to do the hiring or if he had to do some of that proactive and reactive coaching, we probably wouldn't have any employees.
Right. So it's different strengths for different people. So same thing again, where you keep each other informed. I mean, do you either one of you make radical decisions without consulting each other, Brandi?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay. So, but you've also got here, and Sheryl, if we're talking about a workforce that works for us, I think sometimes that we're not transparent enough with the people that work for us. They don't know what we're doing, they don't know where we're going. So, how important is it to be transparent with your workforce so everyone knows what you're doing so you're on the same page moving forward? How important is that?
I think it's extremely important. That's one of the top lines of communication. It's to be open. I mean, if they have to assume that you're doing something, they're usually going to assume that it's not what you're doing as opposed to what you are. And that sets up a wall between you and your employees. I said, the open door policy. We have that at the shop. If you have a problem, come in. When we discuss things, we discuss it as a group. I don't literally throw things at them and hope it sticks, because a lot of them don't agree. And so we talk it out. We come to a meeting ground, naturally, to say if it's something that's extremely important to a mass. Sometimes I will overrule somebody, but they know why. It's not that I just make a point and do it.
Okay. So the next question involves both of you, because you're both experiencing this, because you both are heavily involved in hiring. In your case, Brandi, you may be working with your own company, or it could be one of your private clients that you're working one-on-one with that you hire for. In Sheryl's case, does hiring for her company, but also for over 20 clients across the United States in a lot of different atmospheres. So, Brandi, the first question is to you, and Sheryl will ask you the same thing in a minute. As you interview people, how often do you find someone is applying for a job because they are coming out of a company that maybe the company wasn't very transparent? Maybe they didn't share what they were doing, and this is causing employee dissatisfaction. Brandi, first to you, do you see that as an issue of why people would be leaving and seeking new employment?
The very most recent technician I hired, during his interview process, he said that he really liked his coworkers. He liked the people he worked with, but the management was just terrible. And I'm sure that that's attributed to they didn't have that transparency. They weren't sharing what the vision was for the company. I had to look up stats, of course. And according to Salesforce, 80% of workers find that their workforce failures come from lack of collaboration. And what is collaboration? It's communication, right? We have to communicate in order to collaborate.
Yep. So, Sheryl, what about you? You interview a lot of people, and your interviews could come from anywhere across the United States, and it could be in different types of locales and geographic regions. So, how often do you see that lack of communication, lack of transparency, lack of understanding the company direction causes people to seek new employment?
Like Brandi said, the majority. They're not upset with their coworkers. They might have a riff with one, but it's the management. It's, they tell us one thing and then they have us do something else, and they don't explain why. And Jerry, it's one of the things I've always said to you. I can deal with anything that I know. And that's what I apply to these people. If they know it, they can deal with it. It might not be in their wheelhouse, but they need to know it. And another thing is, people bring people into the employment. They haven't told them what they expect. They just assume that they know, and the people are thrown in and they don't even know what they're supposed to do. So they bail quite quickly. We have some come in a week or two there, they're gone because they didn't see what was coming when they came in.
Right. And going further, one of the most famous things about people and why they resign jobs is, and everybody thinks that it is all about money for many people that are looking for jobs this day. And I think our research, and Brandi, you're the researcher of the three of us, I think we pretty well know that's not necessarily true, that more people quit their leaders than they quit their jobs. So,
Always.
right. So, what's your advice to people where they can be on this same page? And part of it is, it's a really good concept where you have your ongoing, what you call your stay interviews. So, if you would go into that a little bit, I think that would give people some help in how to make this same page thing.
Yeah, a stay interview. We often talk about exit interviews. So the employee has resigned, and we want to do an exit interview and find out, what were they happy about? What did they not like? What is the new company offering? Well, by that time, there's no saving them. They're already going away. With a stay interview, this is where you're asking questions such as, tell me about the best day at work you ever had. What motivates you? And you're going over things to find out and tap into where their mind is and how happy they are with the company. And that way, if you need to change something, you can. So I love, love, love the concept of a stay interview. You know, Jerry, you and I do SWATs. And SWATs, that's the entire company getting on the same page. We're going through and what are we doing? We're setting goals for the upcoming year. Jerry, have you ever heard of the Wigs and Pigs? Do you know where that came from or what that is?
Do not.
Sheryl, do you? She's smiling. So Wigs and Pigs, it came from Stephen Covey. And Wigs and Pigs, so the WIG stands for widely important goal. PIG stands for pretty important goal. And then there's also the HOGS, which is the highly overrated goal. And so we don't all have to be on the same page with the HOGS, but we do all need to be on the same page with the WIGs because those are our very, very, very important goals. So we all have to be on the same page with that. And then I think I also find too, part of the struggle is business owners, they're busy and they just don't think about investing in their people. One of the things that I've been doing with my clients is asking them in meetings to set some goals for 2022 and what education they want to pursue. You know, do they want to get an Excel class? Do they want to take a chimney class? What do they want to do? Because we have to invest in the people that are in our company.
Yep, that's great. So Sheryl, what about from your aspect? How do you establish this communication in your opinion? What would you advise a client that was having an issue with people leaving of how you would get everybody on that same page?
Well, as Brandi had said earlier, a lot of times you wait too late. You start early. I mean, you want to do it not long after the employee's been there. Number one, to see if they're happy to start with, because it's no use to have them there 2 or 3 years and to find out they didn't like it in the very beginning. But then you kind of keep the interviews going with them so you can see when they're changing. And another thing that I see in business owners, they don't keep their eyes open. They don't view it until it's a huge problem. They don't see the little things that are going on right under their eyes. And then when it comes around and the employees left and we asked them, did they see anything? Well, yeah, I saw him turning bad about 6 months ago. Well, he didn't all of a sudden turn bad. Something happened that caused the change. And a lot of times we contribute to those changes. And if we contributed, we definitely need to help fix the problem.
Right. And one of the things that I often use, a word I use is called buy-in. And I feel that it is vastly important that if you have members on a team, that you have buy-in. But even more than important than that is that the leadership team is united with buy-in to the company goals. Now, as we go through this and we talk about transparency and we talk about buy-in, that doesn't mean that we cannot discuss. We may disagree. But what we have to do at the end of the day, and this is one of the most important things if you're an association and you have a board of directors, but when you have this board of directors and they get together, they need to offer their differing views. In fact, I've often taught with other companies, our board of directors, when I've done training, that if they see that the presiding officer is going in the wrong direction, then the board has a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to speak up and not just sit there and let the leaders set the goals. They've got to do this. So Brandi, how important is this buy-in amongst your leadership team? And I bring this up because, this is one of the things that we often deal with, which is we sometimes have to make a decision that one member of the leadership team for the company to move forward needs to go away. You've been in that situation yourself, Brandi. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you have to first, going back to what Sheryl said, I think there's a process to it. I think you have to have those open lines of communication. We talk about, in sales, in order to sell, you have to get the customer to trust you. Well, it's no different with your leadership team or your employees. You have to have that trust that I can open up and give my opinion and I'm not going to be looked down upon or told, no, that's an awful idea. So you have to have that trust and make it a safe place for everybody to voice what they're thinking so that we can come to one common goal.
Got you covered. Understand completely. Sheryl, your thoughts?
Well, I see that many times, many of the companies that I deal with, they invest in their customers. They're all about the customer. And they forget that the most important people in their company is the people that work for them. Because without the workforce and without the buy-in of the workforce, you can't provide for your customers, which means you lose the customers, which means you need no employees. So it's kind of like a wheel that goes around and around. You've got to start with the most important thing and then let them provide for the customers.
Got you covered. So Brandi, anything else you would add into this discussion about same page, about being open, about being transparent? Is there anything you would add in about this that could help our listeners today?
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about that's been heavy on my mind is we work with a lot of clients that are second generation, maybe third generation is stepping into this seat now. And that first generation is maybe still there on board a little bit, but transitioning out. And we often see that they have differing opinions and they're not on the same page. And oftentimes why we see that is because the first generation is much older and comes from a very different schooling than the younger generation. In 2016, DDI did a survey that found 70% of companies are reconsidering their performance management strategy. And that number is actually higher today. And what that means is some of our first generation people may still be leading autocratically. They may still be using a point system, which is punitive. They may still be doing annual reviews in a manner that's not productive and doing reactive coaching rather than proactive coaching. All those things are old school and have gone out the window. And so then the second generation and the third generation, they've kind of grown up in the world that is more proactive. We can have safe conversations. We're not going to be put on a system that rates us. And so there can be that struggle there. And so it's really, really important that the two generations come together and have a conversation about that and educate themselves and talk to their employees again, so that we can all get on that same page.
Yeah. So Sheryl, you and I are what we classify as baby boomers. We grew up at a different age, a different time, we'll even call it a different work ethic. Not that today's is bad, but yes, it was somewhat different years ago. We have shorter career spans for people in our careers for a much shorter time, and they're looking for things out there. So what's your advice along that of what Brandi just spoke to?
Well, we literally need to, as she said, with the multi-generations, you need to understand each of them. Our work ethics was you went to a job and you stayed there for years. Now 3 to 4 years is considered a career for the new people. And we wouldn't have understood that. Plus, we expected the owner or the leader to lead by demands. Nowadays, you can't do that. You have to lead with a much, I'm going to use the word softer hand, which was probably what we should have done back years ago. But you can't be that demanding anymore because, number one, there's so many places people can go to work. It's not hard for them to quit now. When we started, there were limited number of jobs. And so or either you created your own, which most of the baby boomers in our time did. If they didn't work in mills, they created their own jobs. And it's not like that anymore. We have people that are short-term employees that are moving on. They want to learn things. And that's why we have to change. We have to keep our transparency up. I mean, change is hard. It's hard on us. It's hard on the new employees when you change something in your office. They have to buy in. They have to change. They have to be willing to accept. Or short-term, the 3 years will never happen. So I suggest that everybody looks over their office, their staff, their employees, and see what they can do to help provide a more comfortable atmosphere for the people to come talk to you. If you can keep that door open, if you can get them in the door, you can hear the problems. It's not that they're not going to tell you and if you ask. But if you give them the opportunity, they'll tell you what you want to hear.
Right. And as Brandi said a while ago, one of the greatest ways to do this is the SWOT process. That we conduct a lot of those around the country with clients and with others. And in that, we're getting the involvement from the workforce into what the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, and even the fears are of the workers in those companies. And this brings out a lot of stuff to the forefront, but it's also an opportunity for everyone on the team to understand what the weaknesses are. Because, and this is why you've got to have someone that understands how to facilitate these meetings as far as that goes. But you've also got to be determined to get better and better. When you look at it, Sheryl's been telling you things as a baby boomer that we had to learn as we've gone through life. Life has changed tremendously. Life can throw all kinds of crap at you, and you're not going to change the crap. You have to learn how to catch the crap and how to maneuver through it. But while we're here, Brandi, one of the things that Brandi is doing, Brandi, I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about what you're going through right now. Because of the three of us, you're the most college educated of all three of us that are on this call. But you made a decision a while back, and you're involved in what I'm going to call higher education to be better at your craft. So why don't you tell the people that are listening, what are you doing right now, and what's the end goal for Brandi and Jeremy in this?
Yeah, so both Jeremy and I, my husband and I, are going to our local community college. We just had class yesterday, and we are getting our certificate in business and leadership coaching. And I will tell you, we've already learned so much that we're doing wrong, so much that we need to improve, some things that we're doing right. But the classes are teaching us how to be this more proactive coach with our employees and stop, handing out punishment, because that doesn't get you anywhere. In fact, now I've been to actually 2 conferences lately where they're talking about the neuroscience behind coaching employees and how the amygdala lights up and we go into this fight or flight. If I say, Julius, I want to see you in my office, he automatically goes into fight or flight because he doesn't know, is this something good? Is this something bad? So there's a lot of science going on right now behind how we interact with our employees, how we treat them, how we get on that same page.
Right. And this is one of the things that Brandi, as she goes through this, she's sharing with us a lot of words that she's learning, a lot of methods. In fact, yesterday evening, she sent us a word about the sandwich doesn't work no more. And when she said the sandwich doesn't work no more, I put it in the old way. That's what we've always called what the sandwich was. And then she said, and Jeremy's got another name for that sandwich, but we're not going to say that on this broadcast.
You have to bleep it out.
We have to bleep that part out, but he had a name for that sandwich. But it's all the different things that you learn. So coming through, in order for us to serve our client base and our industry, that's also the decision that Sheryl and I came to. When I first started coaching, it was like, I've got to get training, I've got to get certifications. And that's why I chose to go through first was my Jeffrey Gitomer certification, because I felt sales coaching was something that I need to learn. And then I decided to go down to Orlando, Florida and spend 4 days with Dr. John Maxwell to get my John Maxwell leadership coaching and training certification from Dr. Maxwell. Now, Sheryl, you were manufacturing, and all of a sudden you decided you were going to start writing books and you were going to get some certification to be better. So what was your driving force to do that, to accomplish what you've done, and what's some of the certifications that you're holding right now?
Well, I started with the Ziglar Legacy Training. Zig has always been one of my favorite people, and I'm more on the people part of a company than you are. You're more on the business part. So I wanted a certification that helped the people, where I could deal with them. And then I went from the legacy training into becoming a Ziglar certified coach, because that gave me the ability to coach the people as opposed to coaching the business. It still has business coaching in it, but a lot of it is more detrimental to the people. And then I kind of did this out of just wanting to prove to myself that what I had done over the years, which was people watching, was how I could learn from the fact that I people watched. So I got into the behavioral assessments. And I was so amazed at the things that I had seen over many years were actual things that went on with everybody, not just who I was looking at. So I took it once, and I've gone as far in the DISC assessments as I can physically go. I've gone into the advanced assessments, and then I went into color coding, which is nothing like the DISC, but it runs kind of parallel. So I can kind of peg you in any field now.
Yeah. And it's like when she went through this, one of the things she was able to do is Brandi and I, from her training, were able to learn to understand ourselves much better. Why? Because what you're talking to now is what Sheryl would classify is we are all three high D personalities that carry certain things with it. But what Sheryl also does is teach others how to read personalities of people. And it's like in Brandi's office, Brandi's very unique. She has a high D, a high I, a high S, and a high C in her office. So, Brandi, do you treat each one of these differently in your communication styles? Is that what you have to do?
I do, and I actually have two. I think it's actually two eyes now as well. So what we do with the disc is I take page 22 of it, and I actually have the girls exchange them. So Erica has Cheyenne, Rachel, Madison, and my page 22, and vice versa, because the disc, it's crazy because when you do it and you read it, you're like, how does this test know me so well? Oh my gosh, that is me. Page 22 says, how do I work best with Brandi? What do I not want to do when working with Brandi? And that really helps because we're all very different. The C in my office used to frustrate me because I would give her a task, and I'm very much a delegator. Like, here it is, let it be yours, make it what you want. And she couldn't deal with that. She needed step-by-step instructions, and she would come ask me question after question. And so for her, I give her, step-by-step instructions, and I know that she needs that. Some of my other office people don't need that.
Yep. So the reason I bring this all up is to be successful in business today takes this list of skills. I mean, you've got to know human nature, you've got to know behavior patterns, you got to know operations, you got to know systems. I mean, one of the greatest guests we had recently was my friend Al Levy that was on here that wrote the 7-Power Contractor. And learning from him, learning from people we've interviewed, such as Glenn Morshower, Tommy Mello, other people, the Scott McCains of this world. But what this is doing is bringing information to us. And a lot of people don't know this, but we have coaches too, because earlier this week, Sheryl and I had a call with Scott McCain, who we really depend on a lot to give us a lot of guidance, a lot of ways, and a lot of processes of how to go through. So the point is here, that's what we do. Our mission, our role at CV6 Success Group is to give you this kind of expertise. And to be honest with you, one of us couldn't do this. I'll be honest with you, the things that Brandi excels at, those are not my ball games. That's not my ballywick. The things that Sheryl excels with, it's not my ballywick, not my ball game. Same thing, the things I excel in. When it comes to writing SOPs and processes and operations, that's the things that you heard Brandi say a while ago, that's not her expertise when we talked about the finances. So that's what you've got to do to be successful. A lot of times you're going to have to reach out for that help to other people. And that's what we do. We provide that assistance to other people. So if we can help you in your business to transition it to what you want, what is your plan? Where do you want to go? Why don't you give us a call? Let's set up a meeting. You see every one of our email addresses on here. This is a whole thing. You can set up a private meeting with one of us, or if you would like a joint meeting with all three of us, it's just a scheduling thing to get all three of us together. We offer both one-on-one coaching, and we also offer group coaching. We offer our hiring systems, which Sheryl does, where she's hiring for companies across the United States. And this brings me to next week's subject matter. If you're listening to me right now and you are a business owner, a business manager, Brandi, do you think that hiring people is a big challenge in this country today?
Yes, and it's very time consuming.
It's very time consuming. What about you, Sheryl? Is it a time consuming thing? And is it a difficult task? And do you get ghosted? And do you go through all those pains that so many employers do?
Yeah, the thing about doing it for so many, I get to do it on a heavy level. But
Right.
yeah, the thing is, it's probably the worst thing in a company that they have to do, and the most important thing that they have to do.
Correct. So what you got to do is you got to have a process. So I'm encouraging you right now to set your timers, set your appointments for 12:15 p.m. next Friday, because what we are going to introduce is a system that will move you to a much higher level in hiring. We're going to have the principal of the company on next week, along with one of their customer service reps. This is a system that we found through one of our clients, and Sheryl engaged it. So, Sheryl, what's your feelings? I don't want to release who this is right now, but you got to be watching the promos next week, and we'll be bringing this out. But how successful, how monumental is the system we're going to roll out next week?
Actually, it's huge. Brandi has it. I do it. I do it for my own company. I do it for many other companies, and please don't miss the meeting if you have any problem with hiring.
Correct. One of the hardest people to get to engage services is the lady on this other call. She is not going to engage, and for you to sell her, you're going to have to go to the extra mile and convince her of the value of their system. So again, Brandi, without releasing who we're having next week, what would you say about the value of attending our broadcast next Friday at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time?
Well, I can tell you from my company, from me and my office manager, it's taken our stress level of hiring from here down to here because of this system and process. It's also gotten me a fantastic technician recently. I don't want to reveal too much. You need to tune in, but you definitely do not want to miss this opportunity.
Correct. Because what this takes it through the whole gamut. And it is using artificial intelligence, and it actually can look at an application, and it has what's called the candid rating. Sheryl, you want to tell people about the candid rating and what that says?
Basically, what it does, it gives me a preview of what to expect. It's almost like I'm going to use it, a mini disc reading, just because it doesn't go into that detail, but I can see certain traits in certain people. I can tell if they are just trying to make it sound good, or if they're actually answering the questions as they come from within. And it's been huge. It helps us. It helps me a lot, and I'm sure it helps Brandi quite a bit also.
Not only this, I'll tell you this, for the amount that this cost you, I have no earthly idea how they are even providing what we're going to share with you next week for the cost. I'll also share with you there is nothing that we benefit. This is not an affiliate of ours. This is simply someone and a system that we have found does work, and we're going to release it out to the industry next week. So you're going to hear it here first. Tune us in and make sure that you catch this if hiring is a challenge for you, because we're going to give you a solid answer and a gold nugget in the area of hiring next Friday at midday. And with that, we appreciate you joining us today here on another episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. I'm really indebted to the two people that are on here with me every single week. That is Brandi and Sheryl. I know that as soon as we talk about a subject matter, that Brandi goes to work and she starts researching and starts making the notes up. We each have our own way of approaching this. If you find value in our broadcast, would you please mind sharing this out to your friends? Because we do this for the major reason is to share knowledge with those that listen to us, to help them move, because our mission is to help people turn their business dreams into their business realities. So with that, we'll see you next week. And so you'll know about broadcasting, I'm going to hit end. And this is the whole thing that's driving us crazy. We have to sit here for about 5 seconds and we wave and we kind of look stupid. till StreamYard finally decides to shut it down. So if you want to know the frustrations of doing weekly broadcasts, we're now entering into that. So here we go. It is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I just hit broadcast. Now we're going to look at you real stupid for just about 5 seconds.